We are absolutely going to look at Bitcoin charts in this video. This is 6 hour. You can see Bitcoin down around 4% in the short term. It looks like it's on this news. Binance, crypto exchange Binance, and its CEO CZ have been sued by the Commodity and Futures Trade Commission, Cftc. The lawsuit is in regards to not registering with the Cftc while allowing U.S. residents to buy and sell derivatives. It is yet another lawsuit in the works in crypto in the States, and it is yet again another attack on crypto right now playing out, and it is playing out on the Bitcoin charts. And I think as crypto holders, not only just in the States but across the world, I think it's notable and worthwhile to track how these headlines continue to trigger really big moves, crucial moves on the Bitcoin charts. Now, I want to talk about targets in this video that we talked about kind of in yesterday's video, but now that we have kind of this new headline news, I want to discuss what's going on with Bitcoin. So let's just do it right now. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, and let me know in the comments below what you're making of this news and what you think Bitcoin is going to do. Now, first things first, we say this all of the time. News events, though negative or positive, move Bitcoin. They trigger Bitcoin to make these key moves from a technical analysis perspective. And we see it happen time and time again. Now, I just want to note something and remind myself of something as I'm recording this video. Crypto doesn't have boundaries. Crypto is not contained within just the US, right? There's the rest of the world that is adopting crypto right now. The rest of the world, a lot of places in the world, adopting Bitcoin, integrating Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin, right? Not attacking it like the US is right now. So we have to keep that in mind as we look at this. So not only for people in the US, but just people across the world, anytime Bitcoin's falling, it becomes some type of opportunity, right? And this is where the charts come into play for me, because we have the roadmap, and amidst the headlines, no matter what it is, positive or negative, it kind of lends itself as such a useful tool. So let's discuss what's going on right now. As groundwork, and I know we've been tracking it a lot, the rising channel that Bitcoin most recently broke out of, right now, this is the very first true touch of the upper trend line. So this is the true throwback that we discussed potentially happening. We almost got it. This was the other day on March 22nd, 5 days ago, but this is the true touch of the trend line. So in the very short term, you can see what's happening on the 6 hour. This is what I'll be evaluating. And I want to discuss upside, a bounce off of this area, but I also want to discuss, because this could happen as I'm uploading the video, I want to discuss if this falls, this support area falls. So let's look at what that might look like. This is a 6 hour chart. So on the short term, it's going to be interesting to see if it does hold. But if we start zooming out and we go to the daily chart, this is the area that I'd be watching for if Bitcoin falls and fails support at this area. This is a daily chart on Bitcoin. First thing before we look at the target to notice is just the very fact that we've come out of this overbought on the RSI, slower moving momentum oscillator, and you can see Bitcoin cooling off, even on the quicker moving momentum oscillator right here, the stock RSI. So kind of falling right now, and what we'd be evaluating is for Bitcoin to make a turn on this chart, whether it's in oversold, slightly above oversold or not. We're looking for the bounce of support, and where will that happen? And this is what I'm evaluating on the daily. If Bitcoin fails this throwback support at the upper trend line, and then we're going to look at what a support could look like and a bounce off that support area in a minute. But if it fails, we have the very clear area back here, the 20-day moving average, 25,400, 50-day moving average, right around $24,000. That's that area of support we'd be evaluating. We could have this scenario that we kind of had back here in January into February. Bitcoin hit the upper trend line resistance and fell right in between the two moving averages, as the moving averages all kind of converge together, the 20, the 50, even the 200 starting to get pulled up slowly into these moving averages. We could have a similar scenario, Bitcoin retesting those areas. We talked about last night in yesterday's video, just the necessity for Bitcoin to cool off and to retest these areas, even in an environment where it's bullish, continually bullish, kind of closing this separation here. So that's number one in play for Bitcoin that I'd be watching for. Ultimately, it is a convergence of all of these moving averages as we get the shift from bear to bull. So the 200 needing to be pulled up as well. So if we fall to a higher low Fibonacci, even breaking these two moving averages, allowing the 200 to be pulled into Bitcoin, that could be possible. But it all starts here for me. What does Bitcoin do on the short term? Now let's talk about this. We just looked at what it could look like failing. This is what I'm watching for if it holds, right? Because once again, the US is not the only place Bitcoin trades. The US is and what they do and what US is doing is not the only thing happening in crypto land, in crypto world. There are plenty of bullish things, even in the US. We just had the NASDAQ news, right? Last week coming out. So if we get a bounce at this key technical area, this is what I'm watching. So I mentioned this briefly in yesterday's video. I'd be looking for continued consolidation within this area. And I'm going to take the triangle just to kind of paint this. We have this trend line, this upper trend line of the rising channel being tested right now. But we have this support region up to around 30,000 as well that we discussed. And you can see the wick right up to that resistance. We get our little new pattern triangle out, and we can see a potential setup here, right, of an ascending triangle in play. And this is what I'd be watching, a bounce off the lower trend line area. And this kind of extends further out. If I do this properly, you can see this could be a long consolidation, but a bounce of support here. I'd really be watching a move, a bounce for Bitcoin off of the support area to, at the very least, that's a pretty high wick. I would probably go with a more consistent area back here, this swing high to the current swing low. At the very least, the 786 right around 28,400. And this is where we can start talking about some bullish confirmations in the longer term if this happens. 28,400 right to around $28,000. This resistance area is a bounce area I'd be evaluating to see if Bitcoin can make an even stronger move through that area. There might be resistance and back down to the trend line. But if we can make that move to the upper area of the resistance area, then we have a really large ascending triangle. If there's resistance here, we could really start monitoring maybe a shorter term type of consolidation pattern that Bitcoin is within. But this is structure that's playing out in the short term. But in the short term, a bounce to this vicinity, this is where I'd be watching for resistance, $28,000 to $28,400 or so for Bitcoin. What does it do at that level? Because if Bitcoin breaks that level, we could be getting kind of a more bullish confirmation in the short term that Bitcoin might actually make a move to a new swing high, which would be a higher high in the short term, and Bitcoin really approaching $30,000. One thing I just want to note, and I wanted to spend more time on this, but I'm not going to spend too much time in this exact video. If we go and we look at the weekly chart on Bitcoin, I just want to point out something. No matter what happens, even if Bitcoin starts plummeting to the downside because of the news or because it just needs consolidation, you can see on the weekly chart, these moving averages now, Bitcoin has nice separation from the 200, the 50, the 20. Bitcoin might come back down to test all of these areas, right? The lower 20,000s is in play for Bitcoin. Doesn't make it bearish. The thing I wanted to point out on this weekly chart is if you look at the RSI, the momentum oscillator, check out what's happening. We have this area right here on the RSI, which is a higher high from this area back in March of 2022. That's meaningful. If we go to March of 2022, check it out. Bitcoin all the way up here, right? Bitcoin price, obviously lower high, right? You can see this. Now on the RSI, it's a higher high. It's bullish divergence. This is exactly what we want to see in preparation for a bull move, a macro bull move. And that is to say the pivot from bear to bull market. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out on the weekly. I'll do a separate video discussing that more in depth, but everything in the short term, this is what I'm watching off of this big news. Everybody, let me know what you make of this big news. Binance and CZ sued by Cftc over regulatory violations. It's not enjoyable seeing these headlines day after day. Crypto kind of just really being bombarded right now. So we're going to continue tracking this. We'll see what happens. I appreciate each and every one of you watching, and we'll see what this Bitcoin chart does in the short term. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.